Hey everybody, we are live at TPS again, and we are here with one of my favorite people, Henry. Can you introduce yourself to the group?
Well, I'm Henry Azebier. I've been in the fluid sealing industry for way too long, and I kind of got there totally by accident. Never really thought about, oh yeah, this is exactly what I want to do in my life. It just kind of happened, and it turned out to be a great opportunity to learn and to explore and to find out a lot of different things.
Yeah, so a lot of the times when we kind of come to these events, we get to see friends, and one of the things that we're doing right now is celebrating 35 years at TPS, and you're part of the board there and done a lot of things throughout your time with TPS. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Well, TPS is a turbo pump show. It's actually used to be just separate. The pump show and turbo show was separate. And the pump show has been there for 35 years. It started way out on the outskirts of Houston in a small hotel, and then it overflowed very quickly. And then they moved over here to the George Brown Convention Center. So they gather once a year. They have a lot of information for pump users if you're into the pump show. There's a lot of new developments, a lot of just general information, the opportunity to meet a lot of your friends, colleagues, competitors,
right.
and a lot of ability to learn a lot.
Right, and so with that, I kind of think back of all the things that you kind of taught me throughout our time of knowing each other. I've been in this industry for 15 years now, and known you not quite that long, but met you through the Fluid Sealing Association.
Yes.
And so just being connected and really an engineer, maybe not by choice at the beginning, but now you're an engineer and done a lot of work in seals. So you told me some great stories, but kind of as you are kind of going to retire, what is something that you would like to tell the industry?
Well, I would say that some of the most interesting things about engineering is that it deals with objective reality. And sometimes in the world you have difficulty figuring out what's going on. With engineering, it's always very straightforward. Machinery is a great teacher because it either works or it doesn't work.
Right.
And although at times you can discuss exactly how much or how well it should work, in reality there are some very stringent requirements and criteria by which you can decide whether you have something that is useful or not. So it's very good in that way. It keeps you grounded in reality, and it helps you deal with the world.
Right.
And it's a really interesting in some ways in that sometimes what you observe doesn't make much sense. You look at something and you not necessarily know why it's working, why it's not working. And the good thing about engineering is that there's always a very simple and straightforward reason for it. You may not know what it is, and when you don't, it may look like baffling, but once you find out, usually everybody goes, of course, why didn't we think about this?
Yeah.
So it's good for that.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier, and I loved where you said, this world is for problem solving, right? And if you're an engineer, this is a great place for you to be if you're a problem solver. So I really love that, and I love this story, of teamwork. A lot of the things that we do is very collaborative, right? From we were talking to HI earlier, and we were talking about TPS, but also looking at our own organizations and teams and how can we build better teams. You had a really fun project that you did once. Do you mind telling that?
Yeah. Well, we were looking for doing something very different for the packing industry. compression packing, which is basically square rope with some lubricants in it. It all started centuries ago when they used vegetable fibers, put a little bit of lard, and use that to actually stuff around the shaft to prevent things from escaping in pumps or ships, for that matter. Actually, it worked pretty well, surprisingly enough. Those vegetable fibers tend to be hydrophilic, so they just absorb water, swell, and then there's a great way to seal at the same time. But we were trying to look at something different in that they're basically always symmetric about any axis, any plane that you takes through the packing, and we're trying to get something that would be different from one side to the other. And the reason for that is in the packing, one side will be on the dynamic sealing side, the other side will be the static sealing side.
Right.
It's a very different function. So we tried to get concepts of how could we possibly weave all the different fibers so that they would arrange and end up being on opposite sides. So what we did is we got all the engineering team together. We went in the warehouse, attached some fibers up at the top of the pole, and then as we had set up on the floor a pathway where everybody would need to follow, and then everybody had to move in unison. So the whole point there was to make sure that everybody worked together, did everything together, did it exactly at the right time. And so we went through, and our very first prototype resulted from this. We had one of the engineers there, actually a military career. He was the one that shouted when you start and when you stop.
Right.
And then everybody just moved. We had different colored t-shirts, so we knew which color we were supposed to do and which station we had to do that. So it was a great way to get the team to work together in unison. I mean, not just, oh yeah, I'll do this or that. It was like, it has to be very precise. And we had our very first prototype. Now, one of the things which is actually interesting in this lesson is that when it came time to mechanize that would not work, because we found out that you would end up at certain points, you would have collisions. And with the team, people would just kind of move around each other, and so they made the adjustments to get the thing to work, whereas the machine doesn't know that, and it just goes and it goes clunk. So we had to change a lot of things, but eventually we did get there, and we got a very innovative and different product.
Yes, and so I wanted to bring that up for a couple of reasons. So one is just an engineer's way to build teamwork. Very precise, a reason for it. We're trying to accomplish something, and this is everybody's job. I think is a really great way to think about that. And then the other part is that you were really involved with creating a lot of our sealing technologies that we have today. And so I can't say enough about you, Henry. You've done a great job of giving back to our community, the pump industry, and through creating sealing products, from being the technical director at Fluid Sealing Association to being on the board here. I just think, I can't say enough, and just wanted to thank you for that. As an industry, thank you. And so we know that you're retiring. I kind of threw that out there earlier, but where do you see yourself next?
Well, I think it's almost time to grow up now.
Yes.
I've spent most of my career on sealing systems, and I've had an opportunity to work in the field, which is actually very rewarding. Number one, because you get to have all sorts of different experiences. You get to go to see places that nobody else can get to. Whether it's a nuclear facility or a refinery or a hydroelectric station somewhere deep inside a mountain that nobody gets to see. So in that sense, it's very rewarding. And if you can do something to actually improve the state of the technology, then you've kind of achieved something in your life, and it's a good thing
Yes.
to be able to do that. But it comes to a point where it's like, okay, the time is passing by. The world does not sit still, and things have to move, and things have to change, and we have to have transitions. So one of the things that I remember is that as you get to leave, and you think about all the things that you wish other people would know, or they would be able to use, you got to also remember that when you started, you didn't have any of that, and you made a bunch of mistakes. And this is how you become an expert, is by making a bunch of mistakes. So I think we're ready for another generation of experts. There will be mistakes along the way, but there will be great discoveries. There will be innovative systems. There will be things that are totally different that we never even thought of. So I think it's a bright future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Henry. I appreciate you being here and
Nice
everything.
to see you.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate knowing you and working with you.
Awesome.